Hello again, and welcome to the podcast. Thank you for at least watching this video. I'm not sure if you're going to make it to the end. If you've got something better to do, you want to pause it, come back to it at a later time, or what have you, that's fine. Or if you just have enough at some point before it's all over and you want to just go do something more important, by all means do that too. But ultimately, thank you for watching again. This is the second video podcast that I am putting out there in the world. If you saw the first one, thanks, and I hope you got something out of it. I know I did. I went back and watched it a couple of times actually, and I thought that there were some things to improve upon. I am using a slightly different camera. I changed my tie. For one thing, I can't wear the same thing, or at least the same tie, over and over again, but I at least want to look a little presentable while I still do these video episodes, now that you see as well as hear. This episode is going to be at least a little bit lighter than the first one. A few of the topics that I had in mind to talk in the general discussion, the segmented discussion, the independent segmented discussion, if you will, are going to be somewhat serious, real concepts that a lot of people deal with in life, but lighter, not so depressing or serious. And then in the miscellaneous, I'll talk about a few, smaller, or I'll talk about a few more things, and obviously the smaller length, or shorter length rather. Again, thanks for watching. It is now riddle time. Okay, who's ready for a riddle? I'm sorry, that's all I got. So, okay, let's get a riddle going. It is somewhat of a challenge, so think about it, and hopefully we get it right. And of course, this seems like beating a dead horse. I don't have a prize. Just walk away with the gratification, the satisfaction that if you figured it out, you figured it out. All right, here we go. The riddle is as follows: when may a man's coat pocket be empty and yet have something in it? Again, when may a man's coat pocket be empty and yet have something in it? Think long and hard. Get through the podcast, or what the hell, skip to the end if you desperately want to know the answer. Cut through and skip, go forward ahead through all the other important stuff that I'm going to talk about, or the interesting things that I'm going to talk about. Skip forward to the end. I don't know when. I'm not time stamping this for the YouTube viewers, but if you want to skip ahead, go ahead, skip ahead if you desperately want to find out what the answer is. One more time. When may a man's coat pocket be empty and yet have something in it? There's your riddle. And now we're going to move on to topics of discussion. Okay, we're going to talk about something rather interesting, or I'm going to talk about something rather interesting and provocative, and you're just going to have to listen or talk to your screen if that's what you do, if you're in the comforts of your own home or cubicle and nobody's around, I guess. If you talk to yourself, whatever. But anyway, this segment is about dating a little bit, because if one were to talk about dating, you would need like an entire podcast episode. You would need like a series of podcast episodes just to talk about dating. But I'm going to talk a little bit about it and my opinions or my thoughts or whatever. Obviously, That's the description of the podcast. My thoughts, opinions, etc. So, dating is... it's weird. I guess I can start off talking about where does dating, what does it mean to me? Where does it fit in my life? And maybe elaborate more on successes, failures, whatever else. But dating, for example, dating right now at this point in my life is something that's not really happening. I'm working on me, or trying to work on me at least. I've had to do quite a bit of soul searching, rediscovering who I am and who I want to be, the kind of person I want to be, and the kind of person I would look for if I were to date. And some of that has to do with getting back to basics and figuring out who I want to be, or who am I comfortable with being personally, like just who am I? And on top of that, loving who that person is, because if I don't love who I am, I can't totally love someone else eventually. But when you start thinking about dating, love doesn't really fit into dating. Like, love is something that's on that journey after you've been dating. At least that's what I think. You can't have a first date with anyone, and this is just my opinion. You can't have a first date with anyone and go home after that and be like, I love that girl, or I love that guy. You can have amorous feelings, I think. You can begin to start that fall or that descent into love. But I don't think that's something that can really happen instantly. You have to date. You have to get to know your partner, whether you're straight or gay or however you identify. You if you want to, begin that courtship. I think people twice my age use that word courtship genuinely, seriously, when they want to start talking about dating. But when you want to be involved with someone else, there's the process of dating. Of course, it goes actually before that. You actually have to meet somebody and get to that point where you can establish a date. And on a side note, for me personally, that's hard enough. That kind of always has been, or it always had been hard enough for me. Like 10 years ago when I was 23, almost 24, good luck for me trying to establish just a date with someone on my own, like organically. Being out with friends or whatever, out in a social setting, and approaching someone and getting to know them, getting their phone number or whatever, their contact info, and establishing even the first date. I have to be honest, the digital world has helped me immensely. I think between the age of 23 and 33, I'd say 90%. It wasn't exactly 100%, no, but like 90% of the dates that I had, whether the dates evolved into or produced relationships, steady relationships out of them, just the courtship I was doing, 90% of it originated online. And that essentially helped me get over, well, it didn't really help me. It took care of the shyness or the nervousness of approaching someone of the opposite sex and even establishing just casual communication, social communication. And I, got dates out of it. I would connect with people, and I, got dates out of those connections, if you will. And it maybe took a few dates, at least a few dates before something really genuine or maybe solid would form from that. And sometimes those things evolved into relationships, and I had relationships, serious relationships. I definitely had, in my recent past, a relationship that was a relationship no matter what the status is, whether you were dating, a relationship, living together, or it's marriage, whatever. But I said that I'm not really dating right now because, well, on one hand, because I don't have dates. It doesn't work in the real world. It doesn't work like all of a sudden you're single, you're on the market, and everybody just knows. I mean, yeah, Facebook can say that, but it's not like it's news. It's not technically. It's on a news feed on Facebook, for example, or it's on your feed on Instagram or whatever. I think. No, if it's on Instagram, you have to say that, and I don't really advertise like that. But anyway, on Facebook, for example, someone could be listed as single, but people don't flock to you. It's not like a help wanted ad or an apartment ad or something like that, and people just hit you up. At least not me. I don't have that kind of good fortune, for lack of better terms. Dating, God, it's such a tricky thing. And I foolishly, as a teenager, thought I knew what dating was. I mean, all teenagers think they know everything. It's a really, really weird time. Teenagers, they may sound grown or look a little grown here and there, and then they think they know everything, and then they start making their life mistakes, hopefully not too big, and they learn from those mistakes, and they really, they get out of their teenage years in their early or in their 20s, and they get out in the world and they realize, yeah, okay, I still got lessons to learn. And even in their 30s, like me, I've still got lessons to learn. I'm definitely much more wiser than I was when I was 18. That's for sure. But dating, I think, is still a tricky thing, even for me. As far as confidence goes, I have more confidence than I did before. I haven't dated anyone. I haven't needed to. I haven't wanted to. Never wanted to. Never needed to. Over the past 6 years, almost 6 years. And that was because I was spoken for. I haven't been spoken for in the last 6 months. Some would say the last 9+ months, but that's a whole other story. But I haven't been on a date, or I haven't been out there to date anybody since almost just about 6 years. As of this recording, I'm short about 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm short 2 weeks from 6 years. Exactly. And things have changed since then. I've obviously changed. I've gotten older and wiser over the last 6 years. But in talking about, as I previously mentioned before, about getting to know myself again, reinventing myself, I suppose, reinvigorating myself, getting back to what energizes me, what makes me happy, what gives me a positive mental attitude, so forth. That is a necessity. It was a necessity over the last 6 or so months. It's, I suppose, a constant necessity. And when I get to that bridge to date or to have companionship in my life again, I think I'll be ready for it. I'll do what's necessary. I'll go through the rigors of it, so forth. To move a little bit away from myself, at least a little bit away from myself as far as dating is concerned. Most people do it. The people who want to date will date, and it's not a necessity in life. While we as human beings are made to reproduce with each other, give or take, those who want to reproduce, it is possible. But none of us are born with our companions. We were born, we are raised, we grow up, we become adults, we go through life, and we find someone else, or someone else finds us, or somehow through the work of fate or miracles, if that's what you believe in, or karma or whatever, it just happens. To some people it just happens. And of course, in recent history, with the advent of social media and online dating, those things do the work for you, and they bring someone to you, or you're brought to that person because of dating websites or dating apps, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. For other people, I've seen dating. I've had so many friends, and I guess maybe even a few family members off the top of my head that I can come up with that just seem to take dating very easily, or they go about it rather easily. It's easy for them to connect with someone else and further it however far it goes, whether it's just casual dating or develops into something serious, and goes even further than that. And other people don't have so much success, and I think, like myself, but I say not much success because I think personality has something to do with it. I was always kind of a shy person. Unless you get to know me. Those who know me close, or I get to warm up in a setting or a situation, then okay, I'm not so shy. But to meet new people, I'm shy about it, and often nervous. And I'm not the only one. Tons of people do it. Tons of people, on top of that, go through real anxiety about approaching somebody. To even, they're so anxious to even approach someone to just get their first name. And on top of that, some people are so anxious or nervous, they'll hear the first name and then they forget it, whether they're good with names or not. I'm not too good with names sometimes. Better with faces, not so much names. But yeah, going back to it, I've had friends, I still have friends that are, I guess you could say, good at dating. They're good at approaching someone, establishing that first contact, and taking that contact and developing it into conversation, and then developing that even further to a first date, second dates, dating, relationship, down that line. And it's sometimes funny or fun to watch. There was a friend of mine who loved the nightlife, is a very social person. He DJ'd in his spare time, so he knows how to be social, knows how to throw a party, knows how to keep a party going. But he has a best friend who, his personality was just everybody's wingman. He just seemed to be everybody's wingman. And in dating, you need a wingman. Sometimes you might need a wingman, rather. For those who need that little extra nudge or a little, backup, like myself, there comes a wingman. And this gentleman, he was like a master of it. from what I saw. And he tried to help me a couple of times. Didn't really pan out because I eventually wasn't really interested in whomever, he would try to establish me with in those social settings. But just stepping back a second, wingmen or wing women, I know that term's not really used too much, I don't think. They're there to assist you in making contact. They can break the ice for you with someone. They put in a good word for you. They kind of get in there into the situation. They approach someone for you. It's like it's like someone's personal assistant or their administrator doing some of the laying the groundwork for you to then step in and close the deal, as they used to say. Guys say that because apparently closing the deal means going home with that woman or guy, whatever the situation is. But I've seen people have so much success, and maybe that's just from my perspective. They seem like they have so much success because they're doing something that I probably wasn't as successful at doing before. And you'd think at this age, I'm going to be 34 in a couple of months, 2.5 months. You would think that, maybe by my age, I'd be at least a little bit of a master at the dating game. Because sometimes it is a game. Or sometimes it seems like a game. And in the end, you want to win. And to some people, winning is going home and sleeping with that person. Or a win for other people is getting a first or a second date. And for even more people, you get to that level where you're in autopilot and you're just dating. It's a win, and then also, relationship and so forth down the line. But you think, at my age, and in my experience, I'd be, at least somewhat of a master? And I don't think so. And it's not that I don't have self-confidence. I do. Even in trying times, I have self-confidence. I have at least a decent amount of self-confidence at all times. Didn't always. 10 years ago, no, not that much. But I've lived, I've learned, gained experience, wisdom, and now, yeah, I've definitely got self-confidence. So if I'm in a social situation, and there's someone that I'm interested in, chances are I'll do my best to approach them. There is still a little bit of nervousness because I'm a human being. There's still anxiousness because I'm a human being. But I like to think I'm level-headed. I'm cool enough, emotionally or whatever, to at least make an attempt to establish something casual, something genuine, something respectful when it comes to dating. Another thing I want to discuss, or I will talk about as far as dating, is how I did it. For example, if you care, I'll talk a little bit about it. Like I mentioned a little earlier, most of my dating experience came from what was out there online. And truth be told, if there wasn't such a thing as online dating, I probably wouldn't have dated. I wouldn't have gone on half the dates that I went on. In fact, if there wasn't such a thing as online dating, I likely would have never met my wife. Yeah. All three of my most serious relationships, my longest relationships in my life, all came online. All three of them. And who knows, I might not have had 2 sons by now. Or maybe I would, and they would have, been brought into the world under different circumstances, looked different name, DNA, all that stuff, obviously. yeah, my life would have been quite different, as well as many other people. Will I go back to online dating, for example? Probably. If that's the road I wanted to go, yeah. But right now, I'm about. Well, right now I'm still working on me, and I'm about 95% there. Yeah, I checked in with myself a day or two ago, checked everything out, and looked at myself, self-reflected, all that stuff, and I'm almost there, For some women, that would be good enough. That'd be plenty. I guess some women aren't, they don't discriminate much, I guess, or I don't know. Not to say that those women don't have standards. I mean, I think everybody should have standards. Quite frankly, everybody should have at least a decent amount of standards, good morals that they're looking for, good qualities, genuine, positive, safe, respectful qualities that they're looking for in a partner, in a mate, whatever you want to call it. One last thing I want to mention right now about dating, and I know dating will come up again in the future, and there'll be so many other things to talk about. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day I might just do a dating episode, like an episode that's just about dating. But dating, I don't know about you guys, but dating just always seemed to make me nervous. Like when I was lucky enough to have a date or to go on one, I mean, hell, even like especially the second one, I want to say I was more nervous than the first. I don't know. You guys let me know if it was the same thing for you. The second one, I was more nervous than the first. At least with the recent partners that I had in over the last, let's say, 6-7 years, rather. And the third date, I was even nervous. The fourth one, the fifth one, yeah, nervous. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know about you guys. I know for some folks there might not be as much, not as much anxiety or nervousness for some folks out there. They play it very cool and casual, calm, collected. And their first, second, third, fourth dates, how many ever, they go pretty well for them. But for me, there was always a level of anxiety, a low to moderate level, I would say. And that was because I've been the kind of person at times to just, my imagination, my mind will just come up with just wild scenarios, like we're gonna go to dinner and I'm gonna get something stuck in my teeth and that's gonna kill the whole damn date, or I'm gonna tell her too much and she's gonna become disinterested or uninterested rather. Or something about her. She's gonna say something about me that I might think is a red flag, or I might be nervous about it, and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't know how I'm gonna take that. Or she's gonna tell a corny joke or something that's not that funny, but I'm gonna laugh real hard, and she's not gonna like me anymore because she thinks I just laugh too much, or I'm just gonna talk too much. Because I do talk too much sometimes. Ask my ex-wife. But anyway, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know. A part of me thinks that a majority of the population out there that dates, doesn't matter how young or how old, gay or straight, whatever your affiliation or your identity is, the majority and I want to say it's a high majority. Again, I don't think I can put a number on it as far as a percentage, but I think it's a high majority of the folks out there go through a considerable amount of nervousness and anxiety, and it can be debilitating. It can be paralyzing, but it can also be funny. It could also make for funny stories, I would say. Yeah, I mean, we've all seen, romantic comedies or just regular movies or whatever, where there's some kind of, somebody is in the movie and they stress so much over going on a date with this really cute guy or cute girl or whatever, and it seems like the thing's going to go to a disaster. The date's going to go to a disaster before it even starts, or something embarrassing happens, in the middle of dinner or something while they're out dating, and it makes for a funny story, or makes for a funny moment. There's too many to come up with, and I'm not going to go into it thinking about it now because like I just said a minute ago, I talk too much. And this segment right now has almost been a half an hour. Okay, so those were my thoughts on dating. I know I've got so much more I could say, but again, I've probably talked enough about it. So, if you want, put your comments under the video or send an email or whatever. Heck, even if you want me to, in the future, mention something else about dating, or a question, whether it's personal or you just have a topic about dating or something you want me to speak more on, or speak on, period, that I might have missed this time out. But again, I'm pushing a half hour with this segment, so this way. We're gonna move it on to the next one. Okay, this next segment is about the talk. Not the TV show. I'm talking about the talk that a parent has with their child about the birds and the bees. When that parent explains to their child, or children, if the scenario calls for it, where they came from, how they got here. Yeah, that talk. Personally speaking, shout out to Facebook for reminding me. It was a year ago, because I put it out there on Facebook when I mentioned I put my status up as having had the talk with my son. At the time he was 11, now he's 12. And the status practically said, and I quote, "So I just had the talk with my 11-year-old son, and now I think we both need a drink." Got a lot of laughs, it did. But again, Facebook reminded me that a year ago I put that out there. And yeah, I did. I had to talk with my, at the time, 11-year-old son. And I personally was never scared to actually have the talk. That's not what freaked me out. Or that's not what was giving me anxiety. What was troubling me was when I was going to do it. I knew it was inevitable, but just when. And I had to go back to when I was 11, 12 years old. Honestly, girls weren't gross anymore. Like, they didn't have cooties. Yeah, I grew up in the 90s. I was born in the mid-80s, really grew up in the 90s, late 80s to 90s, and back then girls had cooties. Um, but girls were okay with me when I was 10, 1995. Yeah, I was 10. And it wasn't until I was about 12 or going on 12. Like, I was pushing 12. I'm pretty sure I was at least 12. I think. I can't totally remember, but I was about that age when my dad sat me down and he just dropped it on me out of nowhere. I was sitting. I remember this. I think I'd spent like a Saturday with him. And on a side note, my dad and I, from about the age of 10 to probably 13, about 3 or 4 years of my life, I would go and volunteer with my dad at his church every Saturday morning. And usually, if my mother didn't get me from the church there when we were all done, I would go with him to his apartment. And the latter is what happened one particular Saturday. I went with him back to his apartment and hung out with him for at least a few more hours. And I remember I had this brand new Lego set. It was medium size. It wasn't one of those large sets, but I had a Lego set that I was just starting to put together. Well, I took it with me. I didn't open it until we got to his apartment. I opened it, opened the bags, the plastic bags of the pieces, had them all out on his coffee table, and I started putting together, the set. I was in the middle of it, and he had just rolled a cigarette, which was his MO. He rolled his own cigarettes. And before he lit it, he just stopped and was just like, "Son, what do you know about sex?" And I had like a minifigure. I was about to put together the top of the body on the legs, and I just dropped, and I was just like, "What?" And he goes, "What do you know about sex?" And my answer was, "People do it." He goes, "Yeah, I know people do it. What do you know about it?" And I go, "Obviously not much." Because at that point I was 11 or 12. I'm like, what the heck am I going to know about sex? I mean, honestly, the most I knew about sex at that point was what I saw in a sorry mom, what I saw in like a Playboy mag or something like that, or what might have been caught on on Skinemax. I'm sorry, I mean Cinemax. Or I don't know, something one of my friends had that he wasn't supposed to have, and we just saw it. So yeah, that's that's how far it went back then. So the ice was definitely vaporized with just that one question my dad asked me: "What do you know about sex?" And I want to say there was a part of me, a part of my psyche that knew that my life was now forever changed. So my dad kind of first established the basics. He goes, sex is performed, between a man and a woman. And I forget what else he said. As traumatizing as it was, you think I remember every detail, but I don't. But after like a few seconds, he quickly went into safe sex and using protection. And this is where it went it went remarkably different. Out of respect for my dad, who's no longer with us, it went remarkably different. I don't know if you're out there, Dad, if your spirit is out there. That's the best thing I can come up with in describing what was about to ensue once he got to the topic of safe sex. All right, I'm going to describe how this went, but first, for you, the viewing audience, I'm going to take a moment and have you, if you're old enough, I guess, or if you recall seeing one, but do you okay, picture this. Remember those old school Gatorade bottles that were like forest green and had like orange caps on them, like the I want to say the diameter of a bottle, like it was, true cylinder, you know what I mean? Those Gatorade sports bottles. I mean, it was a Gatorade forest green orange cap bottle. And I'd like to think that at least some of you know where this is going. So seriously, like one of those bottles, you fill it with water and it's heavy enough to give somebody a concussion if you hit them over the head with them. Like one of those bottles that were tough to like squeeze to get that last bit of Gatorade or water out. Yeah, my dad somehow had one of those. I forget what room he goes to, but he grabs it, comes back to me, and I'm going back to my Legos, trying to go, you know what, if I just put this set together, like I won't have to think about this. Everything will be okay. No. He goes, gets the bottle, probably out of his kitchen, whatever. Comes back to the coffee table, puts it down on the coffee table, and pulls out his wallet, because he was an old school dude that carried his rubbers in his wallet. And he pulls one out. And he, puts it, throws it in front of me, and he goes, you know what that is? And I'm just, in my mind, I'm like, dude, you know what this is, but I mean, do you want to tell your dad yes, or do you want to tell him no? Like, what's the worst that could happen? And I'm like, no, yes, I know what this is. And he goes, what is it? And I go, it's a condom. You know what it's for? Yeah, guy uses it. Because that's right, you know how to put one on. And I made the big mistake of saying no. Which technically I didn't. But the way I looked at it there in that moment, that if I said yes, I feel like he would have put me on the spot and goes, all right, show me how it's done. Now, remember, I mentioned a Gatorade bottle, and this is where it goes south, because when I said no, he's like, all right. He teaches me how to open the wrapper. I open the thing, and he tells me where to hold the tip and all that, and he proceeds to instruct me to roll a condom onto a fucking old school Gatorade bottle. Yeah. Now, like I mentioned before, and I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but I'm a grown man, and quite frankly, it's probably a given. At that age, I saw things maybe an 11 or 12-year-old wasn't supposed to see, because boys will be boys, and we thought our parents would never find out. And here I go confessing like a motherfucker. I didn't name any names though, so I think only my mom would know who was with me or who my partners in crime might have been. But anyway, I know, even then, I knew damn well there was not a single man roaming this earth that was endowed like a goddamn old school forest green orange capped Gatorade bottle. But my dad is sitting there in his chair while I'm sitting on his couch, and we've got the Gatorade bottle and a condom. It's not even a Magnum. Like, it's not even the bigger ones. Weird, but anyway. And he's teaching me how to, like, roll this thing on a Gatorade bottle, which obviously ain't working. But all in all, I got the gist of it, and I was forever traumatized by that. And that's why I don't wear condoms. No, but no, I do. I swear to God, I do. But that was, my gosh, that was so traumatizing. But as I got older, I became a teenager. I learned the real way to apply such a contraceptive. Shout out to Planned Parenthood of Buffalo and Erie County for giving me the opportunity to learn and then teach my peers at the time, my teenage peers at the time, how to do the same thing. Side note. But yeah, that was pretty traumatizing between my dad and myself. And I swore, even at that time, I was 10 years from having a child of my own. One accident. But he was no accident, okay? My mother and any other adult with common sense, it told me that was no accident. You knew what you were doing, and yeah, I got my firstborn out of it. I'm proud of him. But as I'm saying, I was traumatized by that. I think anybody would be traumatized by that. I'm not sure if my dad had ever realized what the happened to me there. Like, really? Whoa. And because of that, I made a personal vow that I was never going to do that to my kid. Or kids, because now I got two. And I've got at least, roughly another, if I play it like my firstborn, like my number one, number two's he's got another 9 or 10 years if we go about it the same age or whatever. So I've got time to just sit with that and figure out how I'm going to do that. But I went nowhere near there when my son, my firstborn, and I had our talk last year. It was kind of a learning experience for me, because at that point I was able to really, it was affirmed to me that him and his friends, boys will be boys, kids will be kids, they knew about that stuff. Like they knew it existed. They didn't know about it. Obviously they're not having those experiences, but they know that. Like my son knew that, yeah, there were teenagers, like we're talking 4 or 5 years older than him, maybe even 3 years older than him at that time, like 14, 15, 16, high school students that know about it or were trying or experimenting or, whatever. So it was kind of a learning experience to me, because I was naive or ignorant to the fact that he was going to know about it. And for those of you who have, young kids, maybe if they're in middle school, they're approaching, heck, even, kids, period. If you have young kids and they're not at the point yet where they might be, like, hearing about sex or knowing about it, you'd be surprised what your kids and their peers are talking about. And, of course, with youth comes miscommunication, misunderstanding amongst the kids, because they don't really know. They're just kind of sharing rumors and what they might have seen in a movie or on TV or, in this case on Facebook, social media, that sort of thing. But for me, I was like, okay, he kind of knew. He was able to actually make it easy for me. I really wasn't nervous about it at all. Because he kind of had a decent knowledge about it, and truth be told, there are kids' books now that kind of, calmly, loosely explain the basics of that sort of thing. It's kind of like those the books for like small children that it's like, I don't know, I think it's like called It's Okay to Poop or something like that. Or, those kind of books where it teaches you about bodily functions, and as a kid as a small kid, they're learning that, okay, everybody does this, that kind of thing. But yeah, there was definitely no Gatorade bottle. That's for damn sure. I don't know what it's like or what it was like for you guys, for you listeners out there or watchers out there. But please let me know. Give me a funny story. If you've got a funny story or an awkward story or something you feel comfortable telling, you're not embarrassed to tell, let me know in the comments or shoot me an email. Hit me up on the podcast Facebook page and let me know what you think. But yeah, that I did my talk with my kid. It lasted about an hour and a half because I dragged it out. In fact, we were throwing darts. We were playing a game, just throwing darts at a dartboard. Just father and son talking. And he had a few questions about things. Nothing I had to go to Urban Dictionary for. That's a relief. And there was nothing that I had to go into, my dark side to answer for him. He, I guess for the most part there were things he didn't want to know. Sort of like I asked him, was there anything else you wanted to know? And he just was like, no, I'm good. That kind of thing. But he did have basic questions for me. I think he asked me, when did I lose my virginity or whatever. He put it together, obviously, that his younger brother, was manufactured, for lack of a better term, the same way, was procreated the same way as him. He had some questions about just sexuality in general, gay people, straight people, that sort of thing. And it went rather well. My Facebook status then, I was talking about we both needed a drink. He obviously didn't have alcohol, and neither did I. I mean, it was that whole status thing was a joke, and I came away relieved. His mother gets credit because she had, I think, had already had the talk with him, or their version of it, really. It was her that had, I think she had a book, or was able to present that book that kind of explains it loosely for kids. Loosely and, I guess, safely, appropriately for kids. So she broke that ice first, and when he got to me, he essentially was getting my side of it. He was getting it from a man's perspective, his father's perspective. And I told him the story, what my dad did to me, and I don't think at that point I'd ever seen my son laugh harder. Like, I mean, the guy kid was laughing at me real hard, like, haha, sucks to be you, Dad. That kind of thing. But that's okay. He's my firstborn. So yeah, you guys let me know how your talks went. Were they disasters? Obviously you likely survived, but just how much of a trial and tribulation was it? Let me know. All right. We're going to move on to the next topic. Okay, the next topic we're going to talk about is karma and whether or not it's real. Again, in this kind of thing in this podcast, we're going to talk about, or my opinions will come up, and obviously I recognize what other people believe in or what they think is true or what they think is real. But as many people say, karma's a bitch. I believe that as well. And having said that, if I believe that statement is true, then that also means that I believe karma is a real thing. If not real, a tangible thing. Now, for those of you who might not know what that is, karma is, for example, we've seen it many a time in movies, TV shows where, for example, there might be a bully, and here we go. Or here's an example from a favorite trilogy of movies, a very, 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 very big favorite of mine, the Back to the Future trilogy. And in this example, we're going to talk about the antagonist, at least in the first and second parts of the trilogy, Biff Tannen, who, at least in the first movie, is seen as a rather, well, he's an asshole. He's that kind of bully antagonist that doesn't seem to get his until one of the climaxes of the movie, and you tend to see that from time to time in those kind of movies where you have a good guy, or some kind of a plot, and there's some kind of bully who just keeps picking on people, getting away with it. And karma, that concept that everything that they've done wrong, or everything that one person does wrong negatively to affect someone or a number of people, that kind of nature, that kind of energy, that negative energy that they put towards someone else or something else, comes back in a U-turn or revolves back towards them, and they get as they say, a taste of their own medicine. That's karma. Some people, for example, in society think that, for example, for everything that Donald Trump has done or had a hand in, hell, at least in the last 2.5 years, impeachment is karma. Or him not getting reelected and then actually being a private citizen again, to the point where he has to face law enforcement for all the stuff that he's been implicated in. That's karma. Karma, I think, fits in my personal life, or it should, maybe, all things considered, because I'm not a perfect person, but there's definitely things that have occurred recently I definitely wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, and I definitely wouldn't do personally directly to another person. But I've experienced some rather low things that seem to have been ignorantly, I guess ignorantly is the best word I can come up with, foolishly, directly, and in a sense genuinely done to spite me, or to detriment me, to destroy me, an attempts to break me. And I've sat back and I've taken it all, because I believe that their day is coming, that they'll have to answer for what they've done, that karma will rear its ugly head towards them, if it hasn't already. Now, a lot of people believe in karma, and also believe in fate, that certain things happen for a reason, or they believe in destiny, serendipity, etc. That's things that the universe has brought to us, or put in front of us, or led us to. But karma is, man, when karma, when you, like, for example, when you're able to enjoy karma, and there's good karma and there's bad karma, I think I've kind of focused on the negative aspect of karma, the kind of someone getting a taste of their own medicine. That's kind of, that flows in the well, that's on the wavelength of bad karma, because if you're a victim, or if you're someone getting the grunt of someone else's bad karma, if you're aware enough, you hope that all that bad juju, that bad energy you've been getting is going to turn back around and go back to that person that's giving it to you. But there's good karma as well. It happens a lot with folks who, for example, who pay it forward. People who, are engage in, random acts of kindness. They just basically live their lives with kindness, positivity, generosity as best they can. And at some point, all that good karma that they've displayed will, if that's what you believe in, will turn back around and come back that person's way somehow, some way. That's always nice, of course. The bad karma, depending on which side of it you're standing on, can also be good. When you watch that one person that always seemed to get away with something, or that's always been doing bad, just willingly doing bad, they're just evil-natured, or just negative people. You sit back, and from your vantage point, you watch them again get a taste of their own medicine, and for some folks, it's satisfying. It's like vengeance that you didn't have to put forth a lot of effort in acquiring or in achieving. Bad karma can do that. It has a kind of a sweet taste, for lack of better terms. A bit of, it has its own kind of gratification, satisfaction to it. Now, I'm the kind of person that really strives to just be positive, to look at, or to try to take things as positive as possible. So while I believe in karma generally, I believe obviously that there's bad karma that can occur or that can happen to people. I definitely believe in good karma, and I try my hardest to be a kind person, unless it's like rush hour and I'm driving and I'm the only person in the car. There's no such thing as good karma there. In fact, there's a lot of expletives, a lot of four-letter words that start with, those kind of four-letter word, that kind of four-letter word that starts with F. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot positive in the car with me, I have to admit, because some people around here just can't drive. But anyway, that's a whole other story. As far as good karma is concerned, I try to be positive and carry myself with positivity. I mean, even in the darkest days I've ever had, I try to be positive, and I try to be generous with my time, with my thoughts. I've always strived to be the kind of person that could always give advice, even when I'm fractured or not doing so well. Trying to always be a source of humor for everyone else around me when they're having their bad days, even if I'm having my bad days. I try to be some kind of source of positivity, and that kind of attitude can promote good karma, that good energy. Now, I don't try to be positive. I don't try to help others, be generous, be kind, paying it forward. I don't try to do all of that because I want the return. I don't want the good karma in return. That's not what I think about. I'm thinking about just treating others the way I would want to be treated. And I think that's how everyone should carry themselves. Now, and speaking of good karma, when it returns to you, it could be anything. Some people view Winning the lottery is good karma. I mean, if they were generous people all their lives, or good people, at some point some luck hits them, and they take that as, thank you God, or thank you whatever it is, higher power for bestowing that good karma back on me. I've been such a great person, and my whole life, or I live my life very positive, and this is what I get back. Or they are the recipient of someone else paying it forward after they've paid it forward so many times themselves. It's examples of good karma in return. As far as bad karma, I really don't want to get into the negative parts about it. I'd like to think that you can kind of picture what a return of bad karma could be. I mean, if you yourself somehow just happen to be a bully or a negatively aggressive person, and you find out someone else gives it to you find out what that how nasty of a taste in the mouth that is. That's bad karma, I suppose. For example, people in relationships, people who are very negative, whether it's romantic or friendly, relationships. They're deceptive. They take advantage of their friends or their significant others or whatever, and then all of a sudden it happens to them. They find out, they get a little taste of what that's like. That could be viewed as a return of bad karma. But it's a concept that while a lot of people, when they believe in karma and the effects of karma, they don't necessarily speak of it like it's religion. I don't think, but it's spoken of like it has religious power, definitely a spiritual power. I say religious power like they think of it, people think of it, they believe it's real, or they believe it's a tangible, concept in life, so much so that individuals carry themselves as good or as kind as possible, so when karma enters their life, it touches them positively and not negatively. Like the religious power, is that it karma has the ability to, in your mind, force you to act a certain way, or motivate you, push you to act, carry yourself a certain way, similar to how religious morals or religious codes do. So yeah, karma is a very interesting thing. It is a bitch when it gets bad. Some people, when they get it back, they get it back. They get it back. It's from what I've seen, like with my friends, and hell, even once or twice with me in my life, I kind of hated it. If karma was a real thing, I kind of hated it because I never knew when it was really going to strike. Like if I experienced bad energy and I wanted somebody else to, get a taste of karma, that bad karma, I used to kind of hate it, and it was maybe a little bit because I was impatient, and I wanted that person that did to me. I wanted what they did to me to happen to them, and I would get impatient about when that would happen. I used to hate, the concept of karma, and sometimes lose a little belief in it. Like, it ain't never gonna happen. That's the tricky thing, the fickle thing about karma, is that you never know when it's going to show up. So, is karma real? In my personal life, I've seen, whether we're talking recent or in past years, I've seen things to, I've seen, experienced different things in my life to suggest that, yeah, could be real. Yeah. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, or shoot me an email, or if you know me that closely, shoot me a text or something like that. What do you think? Is it real or is it not real? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All right. So we're gonna move on to some miscellaneous stuff, some potpourri of topics. All right, this is the part of the episode where I'm talking a little bit about a few things, and I mean a little bit, not extensive, like the block of, the chunk block of topics. The first thing I wanted to talk about, unfortunately, and I feel like I did this before, either in my first or my second audio episode, I'm not 100% sure at this point, talking about public or mass shootings. And hell, it seems if I did an episode every week, it just seems like in society that I'm gonna talk about a mass shooting or some kind of a tragic shooting where innocent people unfortunately lose their lives because someone went extreme, and that someone that went extreme had easy access to guns, hell, even a gun. And recently there was shooting, was it at another synagogue or temple, I think it was, in the Jewish community. It wasn't as big. It wasn't, well, as big. It wasn't as severe, I guess, as the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. But people, innocent people, were hurt. So people were shot, they were wounded, and a courageous woman, it seemed without thinking, just sacrificed her life for, to save folks in her congregation. And just recently there was I think there was a shooting at a school, place of education, a college or what have you, and a young man gave his life to save others. Those kind of folks are heroes, but they don't have to be. They should have never been in the position to have to give their lives to save others. And it all starts with the gun, with the firearm. I don't have a problem with people having guns. I have a problem with the wrong people having guns. The wrong kind of people having guns. And it just, I guess, as far as politics, public policy is concerned, when there's no money in guns anymore, if that'll ever happen, then something will be done about, about mass shootings, about the ease in being able to acquire high-powered firearms, or a whole, cachet of firearms to just do whatever you want to do with them, because we as Americans, or a certain population in America, just cling to their guns like they're their own children, if they have children. Yeah, there's a right to bear arms, and okay, there is, but something's got to be done about. Something's got to be done, for example, about how someone can just go get a goddamn AK-47 and just have it. Or someone can acquire bump stocks just real easy and modify weapons to just shoot a mass of people, like what happened in Vegas last year. Just, man. This just has to stop, and politicians, those particular politicians who are under the table, or hell, on the table, because it seems corruption just, in certain levels of politics, certain chambers of government, they don't care necessarily about their constituents. It seems they care about how much money the gun lobbyists can put in their pockets and keep in their pockets, and they'll keep protecting them as long as the money's there. Politicians will protect the people giving them the money and protect their interests. It's just kind of sad. I mean, it just seems like there's never going to be enough loss of life before we do something about the gun problem, and it's sad. As a parent in this country, I just have to hope that I, or the people I care about, especially my sons, my close relatives, my close friends, I just gotta hope that they're not in a place where somebody who has guns on them and wants to do a lot of damage in public are in the same place. I just gotta hope and do everything I can to keep them safe. That's the best thing I can do, because the people we elect, or the people that are elected that are meant to represent us, don't seem so enthusiastic about protecting us or making sure we're safe. It's real sad, and again, much love and respect to those heroes who gave their lives to save others in those horrific situations. But they didn't have to be heroes, because this was preventable. Yeah. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of politics, I guess, the number of Democratic presidential candidates seems to continue to grow. Although I believe I heard somewhere that the Democratic National Committee has some kind of a cap on it, or they will put a cap on it and just say, okay, that's enough, people. And I want to say there are over 20 individuals who, there's at least, for sure, there are, I think there's at least 16 or 18 individual Democratic candidates that are running, or that have put their names in the hat to run for the Democratic nomination. And there are a lot of good candidates, a lot of them. But in my opinion, looking at it, it takes me back to 2016, when there were all these Republicans that were just trying to run and become president. We obviously saw how that panned out. I'm not sure if having so many candidates is a good thing. As far as the Democrats are concerned, they seem to, there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference in public policy amongst all of them. They're not all identical as far as the policies or the things they want to implement. If they were to, get the Democratic nomination and theoretically potentially become president, they're not all identical. There just seems to be a lot of similarities in it, and it just kind of makes you, maybe makes you wonder, okay, who's really unique, or who's unique enough to stand apart and run and really have a serious shot to defeat Trump in the next election. I worry that some candidates who might be very genuine, might be very good as president, will just get lost in the whole rush into the primaries to try to become president. There are a few good candidates, in my opinion. I like Cory Booker. I do like Elizabeth Warren. I like Bernie Sanders. Former Vice President Joe Biden just, got out there and said, I'm running. He could be good. I like Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I really like him. He's well spoken. He seems to be very, very intelligent. He from what I've seen, he hasn't gotten a question that he's stammered on. And don't get me wrong, I'm not watching politics, or I'm not watching updates on this stuff every single day. But there are a lot of good candidates out there. Kamala Harris is another one. And I'm trying to think of who there. Oh Jesus! There's I believe there's a governor from out west. The name escapes me. If you come up with it, please let me know. I do apologize. Like I said, there's a lot of them, really, and it's going to be hard to nail down which one is going to be the best one. It almost seems as if the one who's going to be able to raise the most money, or the ones who are going to be able to raise the most money, those are the ones you're going to see at the fourth or fifth debate, how many ever debates that they have. Those are the ones that are going to stick around, round after round after round, like a reality competition show, where the first round they cut off a couple people, the second round they cut off a few more people, and the ones who make it all the way through round and round and round and round, that'll probably coincide with how much money they've raised. So those candidates that can really raise the money, the fundraising to run for president, those folks will likely stick around. I mean, barring some kind of dirt that's dug up that they did years ago, or something that they said that they thought was off the record, but nothing is really ever off the record with a politician. So barring some kind of mishap, those ones that'll be able to raise the most money, those are the ones you're going to see closer and closer to when it's time to actually do the primary voting in this country. But it'll be interesting to see. I want to see how they'll go about it from debate to debate, in comparison to how the Republicans just kind of were out, cutthroating each other, insulting each other, and all that stuff. I mean, from debate. Obviously, you had the I don't want to call him a master, because that seems to be respectful, but you obviously had Trump, who was just notorious for just saying anything and everything, and those debates were just shows. Anyway, moving on to a better topic, a more positive topic, and I wanted to talk a little bit about winning the lottery, and how I've seen a lot of people, it almost seems kind of automatic. And before I get into it a little bit, I'm not trying to say that if someone wins the lottery, they should keep everything and say, I'm not going to give anything to charity. I'm just saying, I've noticed that a lot of people, most if not everyone who has won like those bigger jackpots in the Powerball, the Mega Millions jackpots around here, even the New York State Standard Lottery, which doesn't get very, very high, doesn't get as big as obviously the multi-state lotteries like the Powerball, Mega Millions, but these folks win their jackpots, and they automatically say, I'm going to give some to charity. It's kind of like that stereotype thing that used to be like at award shows, where folks are always, they're always thanking their mama and the Lord and first or whatever. It just kind of seems, I don't want to say cliche, because I feel like that might take a little bit of respect or notoriety away from the folks that really want to, give to charity. And that's great. Give to charity. It just seems like that happens a lot. I mean, obviously people never say how much that they're going to give. But I just, wanted to just talk a little bit about it. Me personally, if I had ever won, whichever lottery it was, if I had enough money, I always had this it was a weird fantasy. I say weird because it's always been up here. Well, I always thought if and when I would win the lottery, I would take my winnings and try to open like a community center, a complex that had shelters for the homeless, had facilities for like education and training, for like daycare, after school programs, just a safe, positive place for everyone to be. I wanted to do something that was really going to help my community. I wanted to do something different than just, writing a big check and handing it to the Red Cross or or the United Way or something like that. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that organizations or charities are not deserving of money at all. I just always had this idea if I was going to give money back to my community or the place I lived, the society I lived within, I wanted to do it that way. And I can remember being out, in public, driving around, minding my own business or, doing business or whatever, running errands and so forth. I remember going past like, old, empty, deserted school buildings or warehouses or whatever. And the fantasy in my mind is going, man, if you won the Powerball or you won the Mega Millions or something, you could totally take that money and turn that building into what you wanted to turn it into, or you could turn all that property, that land or whatever into that place. And I was going to go as far as naming the place or trying to find some name that named it after my dad. As I mentioned, for a totally different and bizarre reason earlier in this episode, I used to volunteer with my dad at his church, and I loved being generous with my time. I still do now. I don't volunteer at his church, meaning I still try to volunteer as much time as I can. I through my employer, I'm able to involve myself in a mentoring program. Myself and a group of my fellow employees at my company, we go to a nearby, we spend time at a nearby elementary school. We mentor the young kids that are there. We help them out with their schoolwork, have fun with them, talk to them, be good role models for them. And that's a way that, with the time that I do have, I can give back to society, community. I wanted to be able to do that with all the millions and millions that I've won in my dreams. And who knows, maybe one day I might be able to do something like that. I don't know. I'm only in my mid 30s, so I still got time, maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right, that was enough for those miscellaneous topics. We're gonna move on to the 29. All right. I was just earlier in the day recording this particular segment, inspired to say something for Mother's Day, because Mother's Day is in a few days, and I had taken some time after I recorded the other segments to this episode to just live life, spend some time with friends, and just like I said, live life. So I didn't get a chance to put everything together, and the next thing I knew, I looked at the calendar and I saw how close Mother's Day was approaching. So this segment, is for the moms, the mothers, the mommies out there. This holiday is kind of like, I kind of look at Mother's Day and Father's Day similar to how I've seen African Americans like myself look at February as Black History Month and think, well, Black history is all throughout the year, or should be recognized all throughout the year. Everybody's heritage should be recognized, acknowledged, respected throughout the calendar year. And I feel the same way about Mother's Day and Father's Day. But when we look at the calendar, it's May. May is May has Mother's Day in it. So thank you to all of you mothers out there, and all of you mother figures, whether you're a grandmother taking care of your grandkids, or all you aunties out there pitching in, or filling in where you can. You teachers out there that are like mother figures to, if you can be, to your students, to your kids, when those kids aren't, with their mothers. I, for one, personally, give a big shout out to my grandmother, both my grandmothers actually, although I have a closer relationship with my maternal grandmother than my paternal grandmother. They are both still with us, proudly into their 80s, living life as best as they can, as comfortably as they can. And at their age, they're not doing so much anymore. My grandmother's not along, in conjunction with my grandfather, they're not spoiling me anymore. I'm a grown man. I don't I don't need to be spoiled anymore. They now have great grandkids, like my two sons and my nephews and other relatives and so forth. So, but big shout out, big thanks to my grandmothers, to my aunts who were there for myself and my younger sister when we were kids, when our own mother was putting in her hours, doing putting in the work during the day and into the late night hours, so that she could provide for her kids. Special thanks to them. I obviously also want to give a happy Mother's Day shout out to my little sister and my big sister. I have an older sister as well, so shout out to my two sisters. They're making it work, doing their work, providing for their household, or helping to provide for their household, and keeping it together. I'm proud of the both of you. Happy Mother's Day to the both of you. And also to my cousins out there, near or far, who are being the best mothers that they can be for their children. I wanted to take some time and reflect on my own mother, and hopefully not get too emotional over it. Fingers crossed. I grew up a mama's boy. Absolutely. I was totally a mama's boy. I couldn't. There was a time in my life where I felt like I couldn't go anywhere without my mommy. And that had carried on into my adult years. I had gone through tough times in my life where I ended up calling my mother a lot on the phone and just venting or trying to get advice from her in regards to just what I was going through. But through growing up as a small child and as a young man, or as a boy into my teenage years and becoming a young man, and even now I'm in my mid-30s now, and my mother is still someone. She's still someone I go to. Maybe not as often anymore, because my mom likes her her me time, and she should. She's done way more than I can imagine and you could think of to deserve time to herself, to just watch her shows, or just relax and all that stuff. But reflecting on my mother, or reflecting about my mother, and this really isn't necessarily a special Mother's Day. It just occurred to me that and since I have an opportunity to talk about this, I thought to talk a little bit in depth about the relationship between my mother and I, and what it was like to be raised by her, with her as the parent, the primary parent, given our circumstances within the family. I mean, I won't get into too much detail right now, because it's that some things were very complicated personal matters. But basically speaking, my mother was, and still is, the perfect mother for me to have. And I know a lot of people will probably say the same thing about their mother, and they should. I mean, if your mother was there, she was a decent parent to you, your mother was probably the best mom I mean, it's like your kids. If you have kids, you look at your child or your children, and you're like, my children are the most adorable, respectfully speaking. It's your humble opinion. It's your child or your children, and you think your kids or your kid is the most adorable thing roaming this earth. But I say my mother was perfect for me growing up, because having had time to think about it and think about who I am, like who I was, who I've grown to be, my personality, character, psyche, etc. My mother was the perfect person to be that primary guardian, that parent. And I don't think I've ever said that about her or to her. But she is. Through everything that I've gone through in my life, I feel like everything was meant to happen that way. And everything that she did or didn't do, however you look at it, was meant to go that way. I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I learned. I wouldn't have gained the strength or the self-esteem, the faith, the inner like willpower, the intelligence, the awareness, the forethought, or what have you, to everything that, all those things that came together to make me who I am to this very day. And yes, I have influences from many people, many family members, male, female, my peers, teachers, supervisors, just people that have crossed paths with me in my lifetime that have all had a hand in making me who I am to this very day. But my mother was the foundation for all of that. No matter how many of my favorite teachers or the best teachers that I had, like, my mother was the foundation. Speaking of teachers, I had to go back to a quick little moment where in that quick moment, I looked at my mother a little differently. I looked at her and realized, I mean, I already knew by then how valuable she was to me, but it went a step higher in that quick little moment. And I'm going to go back to June 26th, 2003. That was the day I graduated from high school. And the ceremony was decent enough. Everybody was jam-packed in our school's auditorium. The AC was working as best it could. I remember getting a scholarship award that brought everybody to a standing ovation. And then I got my diploma, and it was all over, and everybody's gathering around. We hadn't quite made it outside to the front lawn of my high school, but I had a teacher, God rest her soul, God bless her. Her name was Dr. Farah DeWint. She taught me AP English, and I was never a student of hers before while she was in the school until my senior year of high school. But in that short amount of time during my senior year, she practically became my mother away from home. And she was there for the graduation. And like I said, everything was all over. Everybody was, slowly making their way out of the auditorium. A lot of people were making their way outside the building, taking photographs and everything, hugging, crying, all kinds of stuff. And Dr. DeWint, as she preferred to be called because she had a PhD, and she was proud to say that she earned it, obviously, no doubt. She hugged me first, obviously, told me congratulations, she was proud of me, and by that point my mother had already knew of her, but they never formally met until that moment, I believe. Yeah, the way that it went, yeah, they had never formally met, they had never been face to face or whatever. And Dr. DeWint hugs my mother. She congratulates my mother, and my mother says something along the lines of, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for, teaching my son. And she said in return to my mother, no, thank you. Like, thank you for being his mother, for raising him. Thank you for giving me a student I had an absolute pleasure in teaching. An absolute pleasure in getting to know, to help, shape his future. And she gave, my mother such encouragement and was so gracious. that because of my mother, she got to have me as a student. And I've had good teachers that were, glad to meet my mother and, be in, coordination with my mother. But I don't believe I ever, up until that point, saw a teacher really. I mean, I want to say they both kind of came to a tear, or tears themselves individually. But I never saw somebody just thank my mother for being my mother. And I looked at my mother differently at that point, a little bit differently. And yeah, I was only 17 at that time. I was less than a month from turning 18, from being an adult in the eyes of the law, at least. And I got older and, did different things, life-changing events. Became a father at the age of 21, for example, and, did other things, lived on my own, had relationships, so forth. And looked at my mother, and there were times in my life where I looked at her and I understood why someone would want to thank her for being who she is, or who she was, and who she still is. I, for one, would usually always buy a card, and I probably will. I just admitted that I haven't got my mother a Mother's Day card yet. But every year I've gotten a card, or at least made a phone call or something and said something along the lines of thank you. But I really want to say thank you now. There's a couple times in my life where I was really thankful, humbled, blessed, or privileged that you were my mother in those moments. I've seen what's gone on out there in the world. Seen what's unfortunately happened to other people who were not deserving of their misfortunes, perhaps, or maybe just made the wrong decisions because they didn't have a foundation like what you provided for me and my sister, your daughter. The two of us are very lucky that you are our mother, and at least on her behalf, I have to say thank you. Thank you for always telling me everything would be okay. Even if a few times you yourself, weren't sure that things would be okay. Thanks for telling me I would be all right, even though you probably knew before me that I was going to hurt, or that I was going to go through some pain, because sometimes that's life. Thank you for stepping back and letting life teach me a lesson, or teach me lessons that you just couldn't teach, because every parent, mom or dad, can't teach their children everything. I guess thank you for
thank you for letting me live, letting me be awkward at times when I was growing up and figuring out who I was going to be or what I wanted to be. Thanks for nagging me sometimes. And sometimes doing more than you had to, or than I thought more than I thought maybe you had to make sure I was a successful student. Thank you for embarrassing me. Those times in middle school, I'd be on the honor roll all the time, and you'd show up in jeans, your white sneakers, and a jean jacket and a baseball cap, sometimes running right to the front row of the auditorium to take a picture of me, getting my certificate for being on the honor roll or perfect attendance or something. Thank you. Thank you for taking it all in stride. I mean, there are times when, I got in trouble or I made mistakes. Heck, me and my sister. And there are times when you at least acted like or looked like it just rolled off your shoulder. I know on behalf of the two of us, I'd like to apologize for making your life sometimes tougher than it had to be. Those are things that I didn't quite understand what we were doing as kids to you, until now with my firstborn. Some of those lessons, like I know what it's like now, so I'm sorry. But thank you for letting me be creative and giving me the chance to be creative, to grow some kind of an artistic talent, like those Saturday mornings when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and you take me to Buffalo State College's art department and just let me just scribble on stuff and glue things and color stuff and paint stuff. Thank you. Speaking of art, thank you for listening to Dad. The way he told me the story was that you were dead set on me going to your alma mater, to his alma mater, and he saw how good I was on a sketch pad with a pencil and paper. And the way he told the story, and we can't quite verify that, but the way he told the story was that he convinced you to let me go to a different school, to take the art test to get into that school, to really become a good artist. Thanks for listening to him, I guess. Thank you for being an extension of my grandma, who I always thought outranked you, and at times when you and I weren't getting along, I thought she was cooler than you. But I was a teenager, I didn't know any better. But thank you for being just as much a source of love and strength as grandma is. I know at some point when Father's Day comes around, I'm going to say that I'm a good dad because of dad. And that's more or less true. But I'm a good parent. I'm a good parent because of you. So much of what I learned, what I overheard, and every time I paid attention to you, or I looked at you when you told me to look at you, so much of that has been passed down, and I use it all. And ask your grandchild, ask your first grandchild. So much of what he gets from me came from you, and I know that came from somewhere in the family tree as well. But I'm a good parent because of you. Times when, because unfortunately when dad wasn't around, you were both mom and dad. So thank you for that. And speaking of dad, thank you for, because of what I've been going through, or what I was going through, thank you for what seemed like always caring about dad while he was with us. Even during that time, I didn't care about him. Man, Jesus, I'm a mess. Thank you for being his friend at least all these years, and for showing me and my sister that despite all the highs and some of the lowest of lows, I suppose, two people can still find common ground and treat each other like human beings, even in their final moments. Thank you. I still call you mommy in my cell phone, and I don't care who else is watching this. Judge me if you want, fight me if you can find me, but it was supposed to happen this way. That I'm such a mess. It was supposed to happen this way, that you'd become a damn good mother, and I was going to be the child to that mother, and my sister was going to be a child to that mother. I don't know about my sister, but I'm full of a lot of words, obviously, or I can be, but I probably will never be able to fully tell you how proud we are of you. We're proud of what you've done and what you haven't done for us. We're just proud of you, proud to be your children, and proud that you are the grandmother to our children. And on a side note, I have to apologize for making you a grandmother sooner than you were expecting, 12 plus years ago. But if it means anything, I don't believe you've actually aged a day in all those, all those years. But thank you. You've done a wonderful thing with your life, raising 2 children to be the best human beings they can be through all of their highs and lows. You've done a wonderful, priceless, rare thing. Because not everybody gets to experience a mother like you. So, happy Mother's Day, Mommy. And thank you for everything. Happy Mother's Day to all you other mothers out there, too. Gosh, I wasted a good 30 minutes saying all that stuff. At least 30 minutes, my gosh. But happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. I hope you enjoy that day and every other day to come being a mother. The tough days, the easy days, the normal days, the days you don't want to be around your kids because you need that me time. You deserve it. Yeah, I see you guys out there putting in the work, doing more than you have to sometimes, doing the work of 2 parents sometimes. I see y'all. Happy Mother's Day to you. Enjoy the day. Be safe, everybody. Thanks. All right. This is the 29, the closing segment. You know what I'm going to do? Before I get to the riddle, for those of you that do care, I know I don't have a lot of views. I didn't have a whole bunch of listens on my audio podcast, but thank you to those who listened and have watched thus far. And I know I said previously then that I was going to explain why do I call my closing segment the 29. Well, here it goes. I've mentioned before numerous times that I am a hardcore, diehard Atlanta Braves fan. And I grew up watching the Braves. I remember when I was a small child, I had to be about 3, maybe just about 4 years old. And I learned about baseball through watching the Atlanta Braves on TV. I lived for a short time in the Atlanta, Georgia area when I was that young with my mom and my dad. And he was a fan. He always liked baseball. And back then on TBS, during the baseball season, the Braves were on TV like half the week, it seemed. And for me, learning about baseball was on TV watching the Atlanta Braves. And that's all I knew. And it stuck with me growing up. And one of my favorite sports is baseball. And my favorite team through hell and high water has always been the Atlanta Braves. And one of my favorite Braves, I grew up during the 90s when they were just wrecking shit in the National League. Been to a number of World Series during the 90s, only won 1. Could have had 2, but the fucking Yankees in 1996 had just... Alright, that's a whole other story. But I call the closing segment the 29 after the uniform number of one of my favorite Braves. His name is John Smoltz. He is now a Baseball Hall of Famer. He is a color commentator, analyst on the MLB Network, and also does games for Fox Sports. But his number was 29, and he was one of the legendary, amazing Atlanta Braves pitchers during the 90s. Or he started out his career actually as a starter. He was a starter, and then he had an injury which required Tommy John surgery, which is pretty much a reconstruction of your shoulder joint. And after rehabilitation, he was a little bit later on in his career, maybe about past the halfway point in his career. He had already done a lot of damage, just wear and tear to his arm by the time he had his rehabilitation from his surgery, that he wasn't thrown back into the starting rotation.
he was actually put into the bullpen. He was a closer, and he actually did a lot of damage. He had a lot of success, surprisingly, as a closer in baseball games, as they call it. He's that last pitcher that comes in and gets the last few outs to close out a win for his team. I mean, so much so that, heck, he had a lot of success as a starting pitcher. Then he got injured, but he really did something remarkable as a closing pitcher. It's so much so that kind of cemented it assured him a place in Cooperstown in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So, as a nod, a reference to one of my favorite Braves, if you're out there, John, and you got time, you've had a lifelong fan out here who has named a segment of his podcast, his video podcast, that maybe only 20 people have seen. He named his closing segment after you, man, because I'm a big fan, always have been. But yeah, that's why the 29 is called the 29. Yeah, it's kind of nerdy or whatever, sports nerdy, but hey, that's me. So anyway, the riddle, if you've thought about it, hopefully you have the answer. But I'm going to give you the question one more time. And the riddle goes as, when may a man's coat pocket be empty and yet have something in it? When it has a hole in it. Yup. That's the answer. Okay. Told you it was a bit of a challenge. Anywho, we're at the end of my second video episode. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to do something a little different this time as well. In closing, I've been trying to, with these episodes thus far, the audio then to the video, trying to leave you, the audience, with parting words that'll stick with you. And I'm going to give you something that's been sticking with me for the last several months, and they help. They help every single day. Good or bad, they help every single day. They obviously help because I'm still here. Through my trials and tribulations, I'm still here. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was thought-provoking. I hope you respond. I really do. I really do. I treasure. I look forward to every response I can get, whether it's constructive criticism or it's encouragement or it's something you want me to talk about, something you want to maybe see. But thank you. I appreciate you, the audience, big or small. You will see me again in another video. How soon, I don't know. But keep your eyes open, and we'll see. In closing, I'll leave you with these words. Whatever you do, don't give up. Thank you for watching. You'll see me again sometime soon. Take care.